Hello and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. This episode isn't just a book summary. It's a key to transforming how you think, how you live, and how you see yourself. Have you ever wondered why you react in certain ways? Why you judge yourself so harshly, even for small mistakes? Or why it feels so hard to truly love and accept yourself? Well, today's episode will help answer those questions and possibly change your life. We're starting a powerful 4-part series on the book The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This book is not about rules or religion. It's about breaking free from the negative beliefs we were taught and finding true freedom, the kind that starts in your mind. So stay with me. This podcast will give you the tools to live more peacefully, love more deeply, and stop suffering for things that were never your fault. Let's begin. I'm your host, and I'm so glad you're here. In this video, we'll explore the 4 agreements, 4 simple but powerful habits that can help you transform your life. Now we will focus on the foundation of the book: domestication and the dream of the planet. Trust me, understanding this concept is the key to understanding yourself. So what is this dream of the planet? Don Miguel Ruiz explains that we're all living in a dream. Not the dream we have when we sleep, but a dream that was created by our families, our schools, our culture, and our society. From the moment we are born, we're taught how to behave, what is right and wrong, what is good and bad. We didn't choose these ideas, they were given to us. This process is what he calls domestication. It's the same way we train a dog, using rewards and punishments. When we followed the rules, we were called good. When we broke them, we were punished or told we were bad. And just like that, we started wearing a mask. We began to pretend to be someone we are not, just to be accepted. All of these rules were written in our minds like a book of law. And inside us, we created something dangerous, a judge and a victim. The judge is always telling us what we're doing wrong. You're not good enough. You're stupid. You should be ashamed. And the victim inside us listens to the judge and agrees. Yes, I'm not smart enough. I'll never be loved. I don't deserve happiness. And what's worse, even when no one is punishing us anymore, we still punish ourselves every single day. This is why so many people suffer, even when everything looks fine from the outside. We live in a state of fear, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough, fear of not being loved. Ruiz says that this is hell, and we are already living in it. But here's the good news: we can wake up from this dream. We can change our beliefs. We can create a new dream, one where we live with love, not fear. Now you might be thinking, how does this help me? Here's how. You'll stop blaming yourself for everything. You'll recognize the lies you've been told and told yourself. You'll begin to feel free to live your truth, not the version of you others created. Now we're diving deep into the first agreement from the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your word. This agreement alone can change your entire life. Let's find out how. So, what does it mean to be impeccable with your word? Let's break it down. Impeccable comes from the Latin word peccatus, which means sin. Impeccable means without sin. But Ruiz doesn't mean this in a religious way. He explains that a sin is anything that goes against yourself. So when you use your word in a way that hurts you or others, that's a sin. Being impeccable with your word means: don't use your words to harm yourself. Don't use your words to harm others. Speak with truth, clarity, and love. Ruiz says that our word is one of the most powerful tools we have as human beings. Words are not just sounds. They are energy. They are magic. Words create beliefs. Beliefs shape thoughts. Thoughts influence actions. And actions shape your entire life. So think about this. How often do we use our words in a negative way? How often do we say things like, I'm so stupid. I can't do this. Nobody loves me. Or how often do we gossip, criticize others, or spread fear? Every time we do that, we are using our word to poison ourselves or others. That's why Ruiz says we must use our word like a master, with love and integrity. Let me tell you a story from the book that explains this perfectly. There was once a mother who came home from a hard day. She was tired, angry, and had a terrible headache. Her little daughter was singing and dancing around the house, feeling happy. But the mother couldn't handle the noise anymore. In a moment of frustration, she yelled, "Stop it, you have an ugly voice, be quiet." The daughter was shocked, and in that moment something happened. She believed her mother. She made an agreement, "My voice is ugly." From that day on, she stopped singing. Even though her voice was beautiful, she never sang again because of one careless sentence. That's how powerful your words are. They can break a spirit or lift it up. Now think about the words we use with ourselves. Imagine someone says, "You'll never be successful. You're not pretty enough. You don't have talent." If you hear this once, it might not affect you. But if you hear it over and over, you might start to believe it. Then you say it to yourself, and that belief becomes your reality. This is what Ruiz calls black magic, using words to create pain, fear, and limitation. But hear the truth. You can also use your word for white magic, to create healing, strength, and love. Let's talk about some real-life examples. You wake up, look in the mirror, and say, "I look terrible today." You've just started your day with a negative agreement. Instead, imagine saying, "I'm doing my best, I'm grateful for this body, I'm learning to love myself." That's being impeccable with your word. Or maybe your friend shares a dream with you, they want to start a business. If you say, "That's risky, you're probably not ready," you might think you're helping, but you're planting a seed of doubt. Instead say, "That's a bold goal. If anyone can do it, I believe you can." You've just planted a seed of courage. This is what being impeccable with your word looks like. It's not just about being nice. It's about being intentional and truthful in a loving way. Now you might be thinking, "Okay, I understand, but it's hard to control my words." And yes, it is hard. Because we were taught the opposite. We live in a world full of gossip, criticism, and judgment. Our conversations are often negative, even when we don't realize it. It takes practice. It takes awareness. But the first step is to notice your words. Ask yourself, are my words helping or hurting? Am I being honest? Am I speaking with love or with fear? One of the biggest ways we misuse our word is through gossip. Ruiz says gossip is pure poison. When we talk badly about others, we're not just hurting them, we're hurting ourselves too. Why? Because gossip spreads fear, it breaks trust, and it trains your brain to focus on the negative. If you want a peaceful life, stay away from gossip. Use your word to lift people up, not to bring them down. Now let's talk about self-talk. What do you say to yourself every day? Are you kind, encouraging, or do you criticize and insult yourself? Most people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone else. Ruiz says stop that. Your inner voice must become your best friend, not your worst enemy. Start saying, "I'm proud of myself for trying. I'm learning every day. I'm worthy of love just as I am." It might feel strange at first, but with time these words become beliefs, and those beliefs will change your life. Do you remember the girl in the story who stopped singing? Many of us have similar spells inside us, false beliefs created by someone else's careless words. But here's the good news. We can break those spells. By being impeccable with our word, we create new agreements. We tell ourselves the truth, not the lies we were told. That is true power. Here are 5 simple ways to practice the first agreement. 1. Think before you speak. Ask yourself, will these words help or hurt? 2. Avoid gossip and drama. Speak about people with respect, even when they're not around. 3. Speak with truth and kindness. Being honest doesn't mean being harsh. Say the truth with love. 4. Change your self-talk. Start small. Say one kind thing to yourself every day. 5. Don't use words to judge. Stop calling yourself or others lazy, ugly, stupid, or any label. These words become your reality. The second agreement sounds simple, but it can be life-changing. Don't take anything personally. At first, this might feel confusing. You may think, of course I take things personally. If someone insults me, how can I not? But Don Miguel Ruiz explains it beautifully. Nothing others do is because of you, it's because of them. Let's say that again. Nothing others do is because of you, it's because of them. Every person sees the world through their own eyes. They live in their own personal dream, their own set of beliefs, and their own history. So when someone praises you or insults you, it's based on their dream, not yours. If you accept what they say as the truth, you are drinking their poison. This is the core of the second agreement. Think of your mind like a garden. You spend time growing peace, self-love, and confidence. Now imagine someone comes and throws trash into your garden, like a negative comment or cruel judgment. If you take it personally, you start watering that trash. You let it grow roots, you turn it into a belief. But the trash wasn't yours to begin with. By not taking it personally, you protect your garden. You stop that negative energy from entering your mind and heart. Ruiz says that taking things personally is the maximum expression of selfishness, because we assume everything is about us. But most people are not even thinking about us, they're thinking about themselves. Even when they talk about us, it's through the lens of their own emotions, their own wounds, and their own story. For example, imagine someone says to you, "You're not good enough." If you take it personally, you might start to feel sad, ashamed, or angry. But what if that person is projecting their own insecurity? Maybe they don't feel good enough, so they say it to others. If you believe their words, you've just accepted their emotional poison. But if you don't take it personally, it rolls off like water on a leaf. This doesn't mean we ignore feedback or close our eyes to what people say. It means we choose what to accept and what to let go of. When someone offers you a gift, like a compliment or an insult, you don't have to take it. You can say, "Thanks, but I'll leave this one with you." Let's take some real-life examples. Imagine your boss says, "Your work is terrible." If you take it personally, you might feel crushed. You might question your worth. You might even freeze and make more mistakes. But if you don't take it personally, you might think, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're under pressure. Or maybe I can improve something, but this comment doesn't define me. That simple shift changes everything. You keep your peace, you stay in your power. Now let's flip it. What if someone praises you? "You are amazing, the best person I've met." Feels good, right? But even this, don't take it personally. Why? Because if you start depending on praise, your mood will always depend on others. You'll be happy when people like you and feel broken when they don't. Freedom means you don't give your power to anyone, not to critics and not to fans. You know who you are, you don't need someone else to tell you. Ruiz explains that when you take things personally, you are easily controlled. If someone wants to make you feel bad, all they need to do is say a few hurtful words. And you'll react exactly how they want. But if you don't take it personally, they lose that control. Their words have no power. You are free. Let's imagine someone says, "You're so lazy." If you take it personally, you might become angry or defensive. But if you pause and ask, "Is this really true for me?" Maybe it is. Maybe you can improve your habits, that's fair. But maybe it's their projection, not your reality. Don't let someone else's opinion become your identity. It's not just about negative words either. Even a small look, a tone of voice, or someone ignoring your message, all of these can make us feel rejected. But most of the time, it has nothing to do with us. Someone doesn't reply to your text, maybe they're busy, maybe they're tired, maybe they're going through something. But we often think, did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Do they not like me anymore? This is taking things personally, and it creates unnecessary pain. Instead, remind yourself, people act based on their own dream, their own mind, and their own emotions. Now, what about when someone really tries to hurt you? What about when someone says cruel things or betrays you? Don Miguel Ruiz is not saying you should pretend it didn't happen. He's not saying it's okay. He's saying don't make their poison your truth. You can protect yourself, you can speak up, you can set boundaries. But don't take it into your heart. Don't make it part of your identity. That's the real power of this agreement. There's another side to this too. Just as you shouldn't take things personally from others, you also need to stop taking your own mistakes personally. You're human, you'll mess up, you'll say the wrong thing sometimes. That doesn't make you worthless. Don't turn every mistake into a story about your value. Be kind to yourself, take responsibility, not punishment. Ruiz also reminds us that when we don't take things personally, we stop making assumptions. Let's say someone is quiet around you. You start thinking, are they upset with me? Did I do something wrong? They must not like me anymore. Now you're making up a whole story based on your fear, not truth. But if you don't take it personally, you can just ask, hey, are you okay? Or you might simply give them space without worrying it's about you. This saves you so much energy, pain, and stress. The more you practice this agreement, the more peaceful your life becomes. You stop reacting to every comment. You stop needing approval. You stop overthinking every interaction. You feel grounded, calm, confident. Because you know what others say and do is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. Let's do a small mental exercise. Think of a time someone criticized you. It still bothers you even now. Now pause and ask, was this really about me, or about their own fears, their own beliefs, their own story? Most of the time you'll see, it wasn't truly about you. And if there's a little truth in it, that's okay. You can learn and grow. But you don't have to take it personally. You don't have to let it wound your heart. Here are a few simple practices to help you live this agreement. 1. Pause before reacting. When someone says something hurtful, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this about them or about me? 2. Don't assume meaning. Don't create stories in your head. If you're unsure, ask. 3. Let go of needing approval. Your value doesn't depend on what others say. You are already enough. 4. Don't absorb negativity. Imagine a protective bubble. Let the harsh words bounce off. 5. Be gentle with yourself. You're learning, you're growing. You don't need to be perfect. This agreement is like a shield. It protects your peace. It protects your energy. It allows you to live with less fear and more love. You'll still feel emotions, that's normal. But you'll stop giving others the power to control how you feel. You'll stop being a prisoner of praise and punishment. You'll be free. The second agreement is not about being cold or disconnected. It's about being wise. It's about knowing who you are so clearly that no outside voice can shake your truth. The more you live this agreement, the lighter you'll feel. You'll stop carrying the weight of other people's opinions. And you'll discover something beautiful. Peace. Peace that comes from knowing. I am not what they say, I am not what they think, I am who I choose to be. The third agreement is, don't make assumptions. This agreement might sound simple at first, but it has deep effects on our emotions, our relationships, and even our happiness. We make assumptions all the time. It's something we do naturally. We assume what others think. We assume why they act a certain way. We assume what they mean. And often we assume we're right even when we're not. But these assumptions can lead to misunderstanding, pain, and drama. Don Miguel Ruiz says that all the sadness and drama you have lived in your life was rooted in making assumptions and taking things personally. When you stop making assumptions, you begin to live with more clarity, more peace, and more honesty. So let's explore this agreement closely. Humans have a powerful imagination. That's a gift, but it can also be dangerous. Instead of asking for the truth, we imagine it. We make up stories in our mind and believe they are true. Then we react emotionally to those stories, even if they're not real. Imagine this. You send a message to a friend, and they don't reply for 2 days. You immediately start thinking, they're ignoring me. Maybe I said something wrong. They must be angry with me. You feel anxious, maybe even upset. But what if they were just busy, or sick, or had a bad internet connection? Instead of asking, we assume, and this leads to stress, confusion, and conflict. The biggest problem with assumptions is that we believe they are true. We don't stop to question them. We just accept them as fact, and this causes unnecessary suffering. Ruiz explains that assumptions create expectations. And when our expectations are not met, we feel disappointed, hurt, or angry, even though the other person may not have done anything wrong. Let's take a deeper look with a few examples. Imagine you're in a relationship and you assume your partner knows what you want. You expect them to read your mind. When they don't do what you expected, you feel hurt. You might say, "If they really loved me, they would have known. I shouldn't have to tell them, it should be obvious." But the truth is, no one can read your mind. When you assume, you stop communicating. You believe your thoughts are the truth, and you wait for others to act accordingly. But other people are living in their own minds, not yours. They have their own experiences, their own beliefs, and their own thoughts. So when we make assumptions, we create a gap between reality and imagination, and that's where pain begins. Ruiz says, we make assumptions because we don't have the courage to ask questions. Sometimes we're afraid to ask. We don't want to look foolish. We don't want to seem insecure, or we think asking will create conflict. So we avoid communication and rely on assumptions. But asking for clarity is not weakness, it's wisdom. It takes more strength to ask than to assume. Here's a small example. Imagine someone frowns at you when you walk past. You assume they don't like me. You feel upset. But maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they weren't even looking at you. If you knew the truth, you wouldn't feel hurt. But because of your assumption, you carry pain that was never yours. This happens in friendships, family, work, even with strangers. We create stories in our minds, and we suffer because of those stories. This agreement is especially powerful in romantic relationships. Often, people go into relationships with unspoken expectations. They assume the other person knows how to love them, how to support them, how to communicate with them. But no two people are the same. We all have different ways of expressing love, different emotional needs, and different understandings. If you don't express your needs clearly, and instead assume your partner knows them, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. Communication is key. Don't be afraid to say what you feel, what you need, or what you don't understand. Clarity brings peace. Assumptions bring suffering. Let's look at another example. Imagine someone walks past you without saying hello. You assume they are angry with you. You spend the whole day feeling upset. But what if they didn't see you? Or maybe they were in a hurry. Maybe they were lost in their own thoughts. You carried pain that wasn't even real. Now imagine if we did this dozens of times a week, hundreds of times a year. That's a lot of unnecessary suffering. Ruiz reminds us, the way to keep yourself from making assumptions is to ask questions. Make sure the communication is clear. If something is unclear, ask. If someone's words confuse you, ask. If their actions bother you, talk to them. You don't have to guess. You don't have to create stories. You can ask and know the truth. This doesn't only apply to others, it applies to yourself too. We often make assumptions about ourselves. I'll never be successful. I'm not good at relationships. I'm just not smart enough. But are these facts or just beliefs? Have you tested them? Or are you repeating something you assumed long ago? Ask yourself, is this true, or did I assume it based on a past experience? Most of our limiting beliefs come from assumptions we made in childhood and never questioned. When you stop making assumptions about yourself, you open the door to self-growth and self-acceptance. Here are a few ways we commonly make assumptions. Mind reading, thinking we know what others are thinking. Fortune-telling, predicting the future and expecting the worst. Labeling, putting people in boxes based on one action. Emotional reasoning, believing something is true just because we feel it. These patterns are normal, but they're not helpful. When you break free from these habits, you begin to live more honestly, more clearly, and more peacefully. You begin to relate to people directly, instead of through stories. You also stop taking things personally, because you stop assuming what others mean. These agreements work together. When you stop assuming and stop taking things personally, you become emotionally free. Let's take a moment to reflect. Can you remember a time you assumed something and it caused stress, only to find out later it wasn't true? How did that feel? Now imagine how different life would be if you questioned your assumptions before believing them. This agreement asks us to become better communicators, to speak with clarity, to ask questions, to be open. It may feel uncomfortable at first. You may fear rejection or conflict, but it leads to stronger, healthier relationships. People will know where they stand with you, and you'll know where you stand with them. You'll stop living in imaginary problems and begin living in truth. Here are a few practical tips to practice this agreement. Ask questions often. If something feels unclear, ask about it, don't guess. Use I statements. Say things like, I felt confused when that happened. Can you help me understand? Don't be afraid to repeat. If you're not sure you understood someone, ask them to repeat or explain it again. Clarify before reacting. If someone's words upset you, ask what they meant before responding. Speak your truth. Don't assume others know how you feel, tell them. This agreement can also bring more peace to your inner life. Start noticing when your mind begins creating stories. Pause and ask, do I know this is true, or am I just assuming? When you do this regularly, your mind becomes clearer. You stop living in confusion. Ruiz says, find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. The key word here is courage. It takes courage to speak up. It takes courage to ask for clarity. It takes courage to admit you don't know. But it also brings freedom. No more confusion, no more overthinking, no more unnecessary pain. Only truth and peace. This agreement helps us become more present. When you stop guessing and start listening, you live more in the now. You stop replaying old stories. You stop fearing imagined problems. You become open, aware, and honest. That's the power of not making assumptions. You stop adding extra weight to your mind. You stop suffering for things that aren't even real. And slowly your relationships improve. Your self-talk improves. Your life becomes lighter. Don't assume others know what you're feeling, tell them. Don't assume what others are thinking, ask them. Don't assume what something means, clarify it. And don't assume things about yourself, investigate your beliefs. Each time you choose truth over assumption, you are choosing peace over pain. And that's a powerful step toward personal freedom. The fourth and final agreement is simple in words, but powerful in practice. Always do your best. It may sound like advice we've heard all our lives. Teachers say it, parents say it. But in the four agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz gives this phrase a much deeper and more meaningful role. This agreement connects all the others. It supports them. It turns them from theory into real change. Because if you just try to be impeccable with your word or not take things personally or not make assumptions, but you don't do your best, nothing will change. But when you apply effort, when you do your best, something powerful happens. You begin to transform your life. The most important thing Ruiz emphasizes is that your best will never be the same from one moment to another. Your best will be different when you're healthy and when you're tired. Different when you're happy and when you're upset. Different in the morning and at night. And that's okay. Doing your best doesn't mean doing things perfectly. It means giving your full presence and honest effort to whatever you're doing, in that moment, with what you have. Sometimes your best will be strong and clear. Other times it will be gentle and quiet, but as long as it's sincere, it is enough. Ruiz says that when you always do your best, you avoid self-judgment, regret, and guilt. Let's break that down. Often when we look back at the past, we feel regret. We think, I should have done better. Why didn't I say something? I failed. But if you truly did your best at that time, with what you knew, what you felt, and what you had, then what else could you have done? We can't change the past, but we can change how we see it. When you always do your best, you live without shame. You don't carry the heavy weight of I could've or I should've. You feel peace because you know, I showed up with what I had, and I gave it my best. This agreement is also a protector. It keeps you from pushing too hard and from doing too little. Some people try to do more than their best. They force themselves to be perfect. They chase impossible standards. And what happens? They burn out, they get tired, they judge themselves, and they give up. Other people do less than their best. They avoid effort, they settle, they choose comfort. And what happens? They feel bored, stuck, and unfulfilled. This agreement teaches the middle path, not too much, not too little, just your best, nothing more and nothing less. Think of it like exercise. If you try to lift too much weight, you might injure yourself. If you don't lift at all, your muscles don't grow. But if you lift what you can regularly with care, you get stronger. Same with life. When you show up every day and do your best, you grow naturally, patiently, and with less stress. Ruiz also reminds us, when you do your best, you don't need to look for rewards. You enjoy the process itself. Let's say you're learning a new skill, like speaking English or playing guitar. If you only focus on results, when will I be fluent? When will I be great? You become frustrated, you compare yourself, you feel like you're not enough. But if you enjoy the process, the practice, the mistakes, the small wins, you stay motivated. You grow with joy, not pressure. Doing your best is about being in the moment, not obsessed with the outcome. Another powerful point Ruiz makes is that doing your best means taking action. Too often we think and dream, but we don't act. We want to improve our health, learn a new language, build a better life, but we wait for the perfect time. This agreement reminds us that the perfect time is now. Action turns intentions into reality. Even small steps matter, as long as they are taken with effort and honesty. Let's talk about how this agreement works with the other three. Be impeccable with your word, you won't be perfect. Sometimes you'll say something hurtful, but if you do your best to speak with love and truth, you'll improve. Don't take anything personally. Some days you might react. You might feel attacked. But if you keep practicing and do your best to stay calm and centered, you'll grow stronger. Don't make assumptions. You may still fall into old habits. But if you catch yourself and try again, asking more questions, clarifying more often, you'll reduce confusion. The key is effort, not perfection. There's a beautiful part in the book where Ruiz says, "You are alive and you have the right to be happy. You were born with the right to love, to enjoy, and to share your love. Just do your best, always, and you will be able to avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret." That's the gift of this agreement. When you do your best, you forgive yourself more easily. You judge yourself less. You stop punishing yourself for being human. And that's how real freedom begins. Let's now bring this agreement into daily life. How do you do your best in real situations? In your work. Show up, focus. Try to give value not to impress others, but because it feels good to contribute. In your relationships. Listen, speak honestly. Support others with love even if you're tired or distracted. Don't aim for perfection, aim for presence. In your health. Eat well, move your body, sleep. But don't beat yourself up when you fall off track. Just begin again, keep doing your best. In your personal growth. Practice, learn, reflect. You may not feel strong every day, but you can always try. Even resting can be doing your best, if that's what your body and mind need in that moment. Sometimes doing your best means saying no. Sometimes it means being kind. Sometimes it means showing up, even when it's hard. It's always about giving honest effort with good intention. Not because someone expects it, not because you want rewards, but because it's who you choose to be. And here's something important: doing your best brings joy. Not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer living in guilt or fear. You sleep better, you think more clearly, you smile more easily. Because you know deep inside you're showing up for your life. You're not hiding, you're not pretending, you're doing your best, and that's enough. This agreement also helps us understand others more kindly. When someone makes a mistake, we remember they are doing their best too, with their pain, their past, their beliefs. This doesn't mean we accept bad behavior, but it helps us let go of hate. It softens judgment. We begin to see people as human, just like us. Ruiz says that this agreement is what turns the other three into habits. Without it, they are just ideas, but with it, they become practice. You might fall, but you'll rise again. You'll try again, and that's what creates change. Here's a small list of reminders to live this agreement daily. Be present. Your best only exists in the present moment. Let go of perfection. Aim for progress, not perfection. Be consistent. Small efforts every day are more powerful than big efforts once in a while. Rest when needed. Don't confuse doing your best with pushing yourself beyond your limits. Celebrate effort, notice your growth, appreciate your energy, honor your own path. There's a quiet power in knowing you're doing your best, even when the results aren't perfect, even when no one sees it, even when you make mistakes. Your best is your gift to yourself. It says, I showed up for me. I tried, I cared, I lived. And that is more than enough. The 4 agreements are not rules to punish you. They are tools to set you free. Use your word with love. Don't take the words of others as your truth. Don't believe the stories you invent without proof. And show up with effort, honesty, and heart. When you practice these agreements, your life will change, not because someone else said so, but because you created the change. Freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from awareness, intention, and action. And above all, from compassion for others and for yourself. Thank you for listening to this series on the 4 agreements. May these words help you walk lighter, live freer, and love yourself deeper every single day. And that brings us to the end of this podcast on the 4 agreements. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of self-awareness and personal freedom. I hope these insights help you live with more peace, love, and clarity in your everyday life. Keep growing, keep learning, and above all, keep being kind to yourself. Until next time, take care, and thank you for listening.